the first widely successful digital native bearer asset. Better and better hardware, so better wallets, better multi-signature security solutions. But really, we actually see some of the most kind of humanitarian, impactful use cases in emerging market.
Bitcoin's hash rate and simple base layer give it more assurances as a way to store value or transmit value than every other blockchain.
When you talk about Bitcoin, we can think of it in two separate types, right? So there's Bitcoin, the asset, which is a bearer asset. It's the first widely successful digital native bearer asset, meaning that we can self-custody with encryption, we can send it to whoever we want, and it has all these inherent benefits as a store of value. And the other side of it is the monetary network. So it's the specific ability to send permissionless payments to anyone in the world, and to not rely on any sort of trusted third party or any entity that can block your transaction. How able is it to withstand the ocean of other competitors? But as I watched it over the next couple of years, I saw the price consolidate. I saw the network effect continue to be built out. So all of the institutional custody solutions, better and better hardware, so better wallets, better multi-signature security solutions, and just seeing the strength of the community and how separate the community was from the sea of other things out there. And so over time, my conviction kept growing and growing, and by the time we had that early 2020, liquidity issue, that's when I finally said, often the media has a very developed market view of Bitcoin and focuses on it as like a casino asset. But really, we actually see some of the most kind of humanitarian, impactful use cases in emerging markets. One thing I find interesting is a lot of people point out that Bitcoin is complicated, that it's technically challenging to learn. But the funny thing is, if you explore how the existing monetary system works on a global level, it's a Rube Goldberg machine of just madness under the surface. All the details and inner workings of how money flows around the world and how the bottlenecks develop are really severe. And that really kind of shows up the most in emerging market. And so it's natural to see that in some of these countries, especially ones that have been prone to repeated currency issues, that they turn to something like Bitcoin, and they have their permissionless payments. They have a different type of store of value that, even though it might be volatile, compared to perpetually losing value over time in their local currencies, it ends up being preferable.
Talk about the misconception that Bitcoin is easy to displace. That basically the probability that another blockchain could come along and be superior to Bitcoin in most or all metrics. And so let's dive right in. So if we take a step back, basically when we talk about the success of cryptocurrency, it's reliant in very many ways on the network effect, which is also how protocols and social media platforms and a variety of other things derive their value. And so when it comes to blockchains, the stronger the network effect, the better the security and development enjoys, resulting in an entrenched advantage that gives it an almost insurmountable gap compared to competition. Well, in terms of security, Bitcoin's hash rate and simple base layer give it more assurances as a way to store value or transmit value than every other blockchain. And most signs point to that the network effect continues to be extremely strong, and we're going to walk through some of the steps here. And so overall, Bitcoin's irreplaceable attributes largely rest on three different categories. So there's security, scale, and decentralization. And so they all play into each other as well. So security can help increase its scale can help increase its security. So if you focus on security, when it comes to a proof of work protocol, scale is a very big factor. And so what this chart on the right shows is Bitcoin's hash rate. So it's a rough measure of how much processing power is used to secure the network, compared to some of its copies, like Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, that have they've taken the blockchain, they've forked off, they've made their own changes. And so what we see is that Bitcoin has orders of magnitude more security than those other offshoots. When we look at scale, of course, Bitcoin's the largest protocol by market capitalization. It's also one of the largest protocols in terms of development network and how much value is transmitted in any given period of time. And then in terms of decentralization, basically there's more of a division of powers in the Bitcoin network compared to most other cryptocurrencies, even ones that are also pretty big on terms of scale. the fact that Bitcoin is very simple, right? So many other blockchains try to do more on the base layer, whereas Bitcoin is purposely very simple on the base layer. That gives it fewer attack surfaces, that gives it fewer risks for bugs or unknown outcomes of different types of transactions. Bitcoin itself is designed to do a small number of things very, very well, and for 13 years, that's what it's done. But generally, when you hear about a blockchain that offers more capability on the base layer, or that has more transaction throughput, or whatever the case may be, it's always important to ask yourself, what are the trade-offs that that blockchain is making? Because you have to realize that Bitcoin, the limitations that it has are there for a reason. Those are a specific set of design choices to maximize certain areas over other areas. And so whenever those variables are tweaked by another blockchain, they're sacrificing some aspects generally related to security or decentralization in order to achieve more capability on the base layer. An analogy that I've seen used, for example, is that almost anyone could copy and host Wikipedia, right? So Wikipedia is not that much data. You could copy it, you could put it on your own website. But what is the chance that you'd be able to actually get the traffic that Wikipedia has? And the chance, of course, is almost zero. You'd be unable to replicate the millions and millions of links around the world pointing to Wikipedia. You'd be unable to capture a large percentage of the user base that continually updates Wikipedia to instead go and update your version, right? So basically, Wikipedia's network effect is so entrenched that merely copying it is insufficient to become an actual competitor to Wikipedia. And so the same applies to blockchains. You can copy a blockchain, you can make your own blockchain, but unless you reach that critical mass of millions and millions of users with a well-designed protocol and appropriate decentralization and high levels of security, the blockchain is not going to be effective. And so there's only a couple blockchains that have really kind of reached that critical mass, and among them, Bitcoin has very unique characteristics.
Jeff Booth's original kind of statement that why basically in order for a smaller competitor to outperform an existing network effect, you can't just be a little bit better. You have to be 10 times better. And so, for example, when you see Bitcoin had just by far the most security, the most hash rate, the best decentralization, all these other technologies claiming to be better technology are just not basically putting enough pieces together to even have a chance of coming close to that existing entrenched power that continues to grow in this path-dependent way that it has.
And so overall, Bitcoin has had 13 years almost of uninterrupted uptime. And that's in large part based on the fact that it has a tighter and larger security network than every other blockchain out there.